Welcome to SADTU Online TV. The program is SADTU Online Political School. I am Paul Komani, the head for Political and Trade Union Education. Your host is Comrade Nomusa Klembi. Today, we will be discussing SADTU's origin and legitimacy through liberation. To unpack this topic are the union's yes, Comrade Mugwena Maluleke, and President Comrade Magope Maphila. My leaders, welcome to SADTU Online TV.
As host of the show, let me also welcome you to SADTU Online Television on another edition of SADTU Online Political School. SADTU's history would be incomplete without referencing it to the high levels that characterize South Africa and its schooling system. Can you kindly paint a picture to us of the schooling system before 1994? We may start with you, GS Maluleke.
The education system during apartheid, I must indicate that it can take the whole day when we were to really relate the lived experiences that we have had. But I'm just going to be very brief and talk about the disparities that were there based on race, based on gender. So I will try to explain it. That is that we had fragmented education systems. For example, in Limpopo, where my president comes from, they would have 4 or 3 governments. In other words, 4 departments of education. That would be for Venda, Matsonga, Bapedi, and then also the Ndebele and so forth. So you had that kind of a situation. And it was deliberate by apartheid to create such a thing because they wanted that the Tsonga, the Venda or Bapedi and so forth must never be united. One, it is that it was a plan that Africans must never be defined as a nation. Okay? Then you must have ethnic groups. So you're defined as ethnic. So your education was also defined as such, and it took that particular character. But also, that in itself created also another problem because within that particular system, with disparities, you had women and men not earning the same salary. But you also had a situation where women, when they become pregnant, they lose their status because they have to come back and reapply and be reappointed fresh and as temporal. And hence you had seen the pensions disparities that were there between men and women. But let's look at the racial as well, because it was racially fragmented. You had white teachers who were paid far better than Africans. And then you had Indians who were paid better than Africans, and colors who were also paid better than Africans. So you had got, 4 systems as well of, conditions in there. That is how it was characterized. But let me say something that people don't want to accept. It is that for many, many years, apartheid governments after governments never built a single school in a rural community. So the schools you see in the rural community, that where we have most of our people, were built by communities.
On what they called rent for rent.
Yeah, rent for rent. Okay. And
what was that?
The chiefs will then determine on how the communities have got to contribute towards building the schools. Okay. So the department did not even worry about the standard of that classroom. The standard of the laboratory, if there's a laboratory there. Of course, there were no laboratories, right? Because you had to memorize the physical science out of the textbook. You have to memorize biology out of the textbook because there were no laboratories for African people. So these are the disparities that were there and so forth. So that's how I can characterize it. So when you see the infrastructure that is dilapidated, the infrastructure that is difficult to deal with them, that is a legacy of apartheid because apartheid did not do anything around that. We started tasting electricity in 1994. Only few people who were a little bit enlightened in our townships would then be able to have electricity. But a white farmer would have electricity thousands of kilometers from the city. And then they will then bring ESCOM to make sure that they wire that to a single person. Telephones. The schools did not have telephones. But when you go to a white school, there were telephones, there were receptionists, there were everything. So the disparities were huge and so forth. So For example, Madam President, in your school, did you have a deputy principal when you were at school? No. The African schools did not have deputy principal. If you were lucky, a school will have a HOD, and that is a deputy principal. But then in a white schools, there were 3 deputy principal for each school. So there's what called school management teams. How people talk about.
SMTs.
Then you would have principal and the 3, so there are 4, and then they have 11 head of departments that are there. These were the disparities, and then when we come back to indicate how SADTU's weight must be understood in terms of how we dealt with these particular disparities. We'll look into that. But also in terms of one of our finding, principle of egalitarianism, it is that we needed to strategize and make sure that we anchor ourselves on social justice, that men and women doing the same job are equal, and therefore they must be treated the same way. Moral equality and political equality and economic equality is what we were, presented with in terms of our history, to then say we need to fight for this. So that's what I can say, and my president can add about characterizing the apartheid education. Learners, black children were not funded, whereas the white school children were funded far better than any other one. You used to see a bus taking the white children passing into a farm school in the farms where we grew up. Is going there, and then they will throw bread out of the window, and you run for that particular bread, or even if it's on the floor, you go and take it on the ground. And so you don't even know whether it's fresh or not fresh, but you're going to eat it. So we've got to travel on barefooted for 18 kilometers and more to school. So these were the disparities, and that's why we need to appreciate our freedom and our forebears who fought for us to have this particular freedom. It was the West system using Bantu education. That is the West. None of the colonized countries in the world had their education being as colonized as our education.
So besides a major disparity was the quality of education that was being received. Can you expand on the quality of education?
That obviously expenditure on white children then was much higher than that of blacks. For instance, in terms of dollars then, it was $7.87 vis-a-vis $65.24. It's going to affect the quality of education because learner-teacher support material would be affected. During those days, there were no textbooks provided to schools as such. We had to buy exercise books. We had to buy, there were a lot of bookshops wherein you're going to buy if you have money. If you don't have, you'll just go to school without books and rely on good Samaritans who might borrow you. So white kids had everything we did not have. So the difference with that is that today you have textbooks being provided to every learner on an equal basis. You have learner-teacher support material being provided on an equal basis, something that we fought for. It did not come out easy.
Quality also, my president also would depend on the quality of the teacher, the quality of training. They were trained for 2 years, whilst they were training for 4 years. So Africans would train for 2 years, later it was 3 years. So the qualification was also of poor quality. Okay, being trained to teach what to teach and not how to teach, and not for life application, just for you to be able to be a cheap labor.
Yes, you started it on the eve of democracy. There was a 1-year teacher's course.
Yes.
Really?
After passing standard 6, which is grade 8 today, you could go and become a private teacher. And then thereafter, if you have taught for 2 years, you would qualify, for instance, to go to Maphila College in Limpopo, to go and do 1 year teacher's course. And teachers then did what they called General Teaching Method, GTM. So all subjects, you had to be conversant with all subjects. And the most cruel part of it on quality of education, if I happen to be good in English, and the principal thinks that I'm outshining others or he's not happy with me, the allocation of subjects to say, what are you going to teach the following year? Yeah. The principal might give me music, might give me agriculture, something different from what you have. They would say, but your certificate has Afrikaans, has English, has Spady. You have also done biology, you have done history, you have done BIPST, but you will not be strong in all those subjects. Then he looks at it and say, but this year you are no longer going to teach the biology which you enjoy, you are going to teach BIPST. And when you ask why, you did General Teaching Method, GTM. So you must be conversant with all the subjects.
So you had no say?
No, you had no say. If you complained, the second manager would come in. They were called inspectors. And then they come in, you are a bully, they will unilaterally just transfer you to Bushbuck Ridge or somewhere else, far from home, if you still want to be in the teaching fraternity.
So it means the system was meant to keep people apart and to ensure that no one progressed or it didn't change people's lives for the better. So now we come to SADTU being launched in October 1990. And this launch saw organizations coming across the color lines, organizations that were previously divided along racial lines, along ethnic lines, coming together. How did that happen in such a situation, as you have explained, in such a situation that was meant to keep people apart? How did it come about that we saw all these people meeting and forming this organization?
The president will take that.
Okay. It was through the Harare Declaration, a Congress of Teachers organized in April 1988, took a decision to form what was to be a SADTU at a later stage. You had, for instance, ATASA, UTASA, TASA, NUSA, WECTU, ECTU, MATU, ELPTU, and so on and so on. These are the ones that were admitted later. We had what we call National Teacher Unity Forum, which was meant to bring the teacher organizations together to form one united, non-racial, non-sexist organization. From 1988, April until in October 1990, the 6th, that's when the giant SADTU was born. You would know that it took almost 2 years, like an elephant. And while some of those teacher organizations chickened out, but you still had many of them agreeing to that principle of forming a united teachers union. But at that time, unions were not recognized. We had to fight for it. It was not an easy. People were arrested. People were maimed in between and so on. I remember the 1993 strike in Leboa, wherein we called our founding General Secretary, Comrade Randolph van den Heever, who was with us in Leboa in that march. And the police came with their tear gas. He was whisked out, and it was just hell. You had TASA for Indians, You had the colored ATASA, African Teachers Association of South Africa, and so on. So it was not easy. But because the ANC had made a call that for the liberation of this country, teachers were lagging behind. So through the Harare Declaration, which was a product of Organization of African Unity, now called African Union, teachers had to come in to be able to mobilize societies so that we can take our liberation forward. So it was not an accident. It was through the African National Congress and the call made by Tambo that we need teachers to speak in one voice instead of them speaking as Indians, as coloreds, as blacks, and so on.
Mnikamusa, you can't miss this moment. Was Madiba Magic responsible for this unity? Because we were informed that Madiba was at the launch in Orlando.
Madiba, yes, was there because remember that Madiba was released in 1990 as well, in Feb, and then SADTU then launched in October 1990. So he said SADTU is the beacon of hope. Okay, and we need to understand that statement and unpack it a little bit. What did he mean? If you see when we started saying that SADTU Day, we're going back and reflecting on that statement when he said SADTU is a beacon of hope because SADTU is now one national united organization that represents all our people, non-racialism and non-sexism. We'll come back to come and deal with the issue of the principle, but that was the principle. That's what your question to then say, we saw many people of different races coming together.
Yes.
It's not an accident. As he has said, Tambo made a call, and that particular calling was listened by COSATU, the Communist Party, and the former president, Thabo Mbeki, and the other president, who is a problem now, were part of those who met our delegation in Harare in order to ensure that that happens in that. So yes, Madiba was there and international organizations were there. We always believe in solidarity and they came and supported that particular launch when he was there. And that's the beacon of hope is that the expectation is what? Is that the expectation is that we have to be prepared. We have to be professional. We have got to have a more higher dose of love to the country, to our children, and to our profession. And that is the hope that he had, that teachers will also be respected because they are the torchbearers. They are the igniters of dreams of children. And therefore, that's the hope that he had, is that through education, we want to liberate our country. And then we're going to be the last line of defense, the last line of fighting against ignorance and fighting against inequalities and so forth by transforming education. So that is the hope that Madiba had on SADTU, that this is an instrument of liberation. And it is going to use an education as a site of struggle, as a tool for liberating people. And we still believe that. It is in our principles, founding principle, as one of those principles that we believe. It's also in our ethos. One of our ethos is about liberation through mass mobilization. Okay, so we have got to mobilize, and to mobilize is that we needed to bring all the teacher organization so that our voice can be heard, because divided we fall, but united we stand firm.
What surprises me?
Just before that, yes, it's true. Madiba was there at the launch of our Congress at Nasrec here in Johannesburg. But one would not say that it was a magic as such, because my understanding of the Madiba magic, it's especially in sports, when we're doing exceptionally well, be it rugby, be it Bafana Bafana in 1996, rugby 1995, and so on, to say under his presidency, a lot of good things are happening for reconciliation and uniting the whole country. Yeah.
I'm surprised that you said it took 2 years to form this organization. I'm surprised because, I mean, there were decades of separation of of races, of people along ethical lines. What happened to ensure that people who were divided ideologically, uh, ethnically, racially, could come up with a solution within a space of 2 years? What happened to ensure that these people really come together to form this union? I understand some did not join, but I think a majority did join to form SADTU.
The winds of change were blowing as at that time. You are acutely aware that on the 2nd of February 1990, Mandela was released. And the level of political activism in our country, if you take it back a little while, 1976 uprisings, the Soweto uprisings due to the use of Africans as a medium of instruction. Now, 1986 was a different environment altogether. With the call made by O.R. Tambo that until we have liberation, South Africa must become ungovernable. It was. The students formed COSAS around 1985, and COSATU was formed in 1985. Now, the teachers were fragmented, hence the Harare Declaration and the conference April 1988 to make sure that we come together. So when organizations were unbanned, it was just that the soil was fertile to plow the seeds of freedom and unity among teachers. Then on the 11th, Mandela was released and so on. There was a lot of euphoria to say everything else is possible in our lifetime. But the issues of ideology in the National Teacher Unity Forum, where we were discussing how we need to come together, it's not like NEUSA or NEUSA, which was led by Curtis Ngondo. It's not like everybody was happy. Tamim Seleleku and others from KZN, I remember a Khadeb who was killed during the Inkatha, what's name. They tried very hard to say, let's collapse NEUSA into SADTU. I remember the last interaction of the National Teacher Unity Forum in Bloemfontein on the 15-16 June 1990. It was not an easy one. But ultimately, everybody had to agree that this is the route to take. Because the challenge, even with the founding principle of COSATU, one union, one industry, one federation, one country, is that once you have smaller units, pockets of unions and so on, those that are leading those unions don't want to relinquish power. It's like a school that has diminished to be a school. From 1,000 students, it's left with 100 students. The principal will not agree that that school is no longer relevant. They will try and influence the community to say, Hoshi Mamang, you are not being recognized, you must fight, that there must be a school in your what's name, in your village. So yeah, that was just part of that. It was not an easy one, but the soil was fertile for us to plow the seed of coming together.
Well, I was in Botswana yesterday, and I met the president of BTU, which is 80-something years old, and one of the president there, Remutusi, has hosted some of our leaders during these talks. So because the talks were going on and on, and so the Harare Declaration formed a platform to really bring the people together and so forth. So then he reminded me, in actual fact, SADTU was conceived here in Botswana.
In Botswana.
Yes, because I met some of your leaders here. He's an elderly person, very informed with institutional memory and so forth. And then we always respect the BTU, Zimta, and others, Tom Bediaku, who were there at the forefront of the struggle for the formation of SADTU. And we must always thank those unions because they gave home to our leaders when they were going abroad to go and benchmark and be supported. Unions in the Nordic countries, the Scandinavian countries, and some from the United States also, had a hand in making sure that we have a united organization. Today, we are proud to call SADTU a unitary organization, a national organization that is non-racial, that is non-sexist.
We are launched in 1990. The Nationalist Party was still in power. The homelands were still operational. How did SADTU manage to navigate in such a situation? Because really, there was that euphoria of a new, we could sense that the new dawn was coming, but still, we're still under the apartheid Nationalist Party. How did you manage to navigate to ensure that you negotiate properly for our members and that you are recognized as a union so that you can negotiate?
Well, if you see what is written on Paul's t-shirt, SADTU and recognition. So the recognition did not come as a manna from heaven. It came, as my president has said, people had to be suspended. People had to be killed. People have to be jailed because we were in the struggle. And SADTU is founded in the struggle. And its roots in the people's education for people's power. Okay? And that gives us the legitimacy as a trade union that is not crafted for only the classroom, but an organization that was seen by Tambo, by Mandela, as an instrument of liberation. So we had to really, through that particular legitimacy, inform your campaigns and the struggles that we were waging. So take, for example, what my president has said, the 1993 longest strike. That was to take the National Party out. Look, it has, because we demanded 30%, remember, President. And the 30%, obviously, it was to say, we are tired with this apartheid education and apartheid government, and we now pushing as part of the United Democratic Movement, following the people's education for people's power and the news. So because SADTU's roots is in the struggle, and that's why the 1993 strike must be regarded as pushing the apartheid government out. Even when the interim constitution was put in place and so forth, it was not put in place because de Klerk loved it. It was because the country was burning. It was because the teachers had also started joining now the strikes, because before, remember, there was we can't apply because there was nowhere where we can apply for that because we're not recognized. And that's where the recognition also came, because of the campaigns and all the other actions and protests that we put to push the Nationalist Party out. So we're very proud of that. Hence, we are always we can teach and
Fight at the same time.
Yes.
Because we believe in that we cannot be silent.
Now, we were part of the UDF, especially those of us who came from NUSA. We were part of the United Democratic Front.
Yeah, Fran, not M.
Which came into being after the formation of the tricameral government in 1983, in which case, again, a black majority were excluded. It was the whites, the coloreds, and now the Indians. The level of mobilization that was influenced by UDF was massive. And when de Klerk unbanned organizations on the 2nd of February, it was not out of his own volition. The mobilization was just too much. But there is an argument in history that with the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was no longer that much of a threat, and maybe that is why they capitulated and so on. But with international solidarity being at its height and with internal uprisings, they had no alternative. Now, as for SADTU, in those early stages, with the homelands still in existence, some of them were not as harsh as all that against the unions, because you'd have a situation wherein the issue of leave without pay by the Bantu stance, it was not applied just across the board to say there was a strike and so on and so on. Everybody else could see that the change was here, and therefore, even if they were not in the forefront like your Bandu Holomisa, the general from Transkei, there were those that were sympathetic.
In KwaZulu-Natal,
Teles was not sympathetic.
Magope was not
sympathetic. Kozo,
in Ciskei.
I was not sympathetic, and so forth. So it was really volatile at that time. And so forth.
Whilst touching on this contradiction, the others prepared to move, others stalling. We are told that the old crocodile could not cross the Rubicon. Were there any contradictions in the National Party with the removal of PFU border before they brought in the clerk so that he can be able to lead the project?
Well, it was the pressure. The currency was collapsing. The economy was collapsing, and therefore the pressure that was put on the National Party was to take the younger one, de Klerk. So de Klerk had capitulated. It's not like he willingly wanted to liberate this, but we liberated the country, and he had to hand over power because of the struggles that were being waged.
So in this 1993, you waged this biggest strike, this biggest strike. And also, it's also in 1993 that SADTU becomes an affiliate of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU. What informed the decision to affiliate with COSATU?
You want to take it?
Well, the issue of affiliating to COSATU, we had said at the beginning, at the Congress, wherein Mandela gave a keynote address on the 6th of October 1990, and also the National Teacher Unity Forum. It was being convened by COSATU. And the General Secretary of COSATU then, SADTU, is the one who was chairing the proceedings. So the spirit of solidarity, workers' unity was prevalent among us. So that's how also this thing of unionism, to say other unions were already part of COSATU as from 1985, and to contribute to the national democratic revolution in this country, which is the transfer of power from the minority to the majority, informed that decision. But there was resistance from some among us to be part of COSATU, to say, will you still be professional? Or what are we going to be? Why do we have to join COSATU? We can't be part of COSATU. We are teachers, and the workers there, some are not at the level where we are as conservatives. You know, that's how teachers are. And are you saying to us that we're going to be led by people who have not gone to school? For instance, because workers might choose somebody who has not necessarily passed matric and so on, and just say Viva Amanda and then throw stones. Teachers were very reluctant to join COSATU, but we convinced them that it is for the general good that we become part and parcel of COSATU, so that as a united force, our voice would be much stronger than when we speak in silence.
Look, if I were to add, that debate was on the Congress floor in 1993. It could not be concluded, not at all. It was a debate from the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Remember Duncan, who took over now to chair, and immediately strategically said, you know what, let's defer this matter. And then the Congress agreed that they defer this matter to the National General Council, where it would then be finalized. And it was finalized that because that debate could have divided a newly formed organization, united and so forth, because it could have had other people walking away. But the leadership brought us together, and the National General Council was able to really unite and then and joining COSATU and so forth. The president spoke about the ideology precisely because so you can say COSATU was part of the Harare discussions because it was part of the alliance. And obviously, the ANC initiated that and then it works and so forth. So part of our ideology basically is rooted in the National Democratic Revolution. Okay. If you look at our 2030 vision, it's really rooted there, but also it's rooted in the Freedom Charter. Okay. Hence, you have us saying education for all. And that education is not a commodity. Education is a human right. You would understand that that comes from the roots of a human right culture of the African National Congress, the SACP, COSATU, and the mass democratic movement, which we leverage that particular heritage that we have from there.
The affiliation to COSATU automatically, made SADTU to be part of this National Democratic Revolution. It made SADTU to have a bigger voice, to have a voice with other workers in pushing forward trade unionism. And they say unity, is strength. So I would say the positive was that SADTU's voice was strengthened. Yeah, but there are also negatives to this in that there is a perception that being linked to COSATU, some people felt, or some members feel that we shifted from really looking at representing members to using our affiliation to COSATU as well as to the Tripartite Alliance as a stepping stone to be in parliament and all, and being linked to the ANC, the ruling party. There was doubt that we can negotiate effectively for members' rights because we are now linked to the ruling party. Can you?
Not at all. Not at all.
Yes.
SADTU is not a waiting station for deployment into government. Anybody who says that, the question that we would ask, why is the General Secretary a founding member here? Why am I here as a founding member? 35 years after SADTU was formed, if that was to be the case. In 2009, for instance, the biggest achievement ever, I think, that we were able to get. Under normal circumstances, we're speaking of what is the inflation, what is the CPI, and so on. But the OSD, which had a carry-through effect in 2009, OSD said anybody who has been in the teaching fraternity from the 1st of June that year, 2009, they would recognize the experience of the previous years. And we were given one notch for every 3 years that we had spent in the teaching fraternity. Why this is still fresh in my mind is because I became a school principal after 21 years of service in the teaching fraternity. And that was in March 2009. 3 months down the line, OSD kicked in. And when OSD kicked in, there was this thing of how many years, for every 3 years, you get a notch. How many notches did I get over and above the fact that I was now a school principal? 3 months in that post. I got 7 notches over and above because I had 21 years. Now it was for every 3 years, one, and then it was 3 by 7, 21. That's how our relationship with the alliance is not compromising us. at all. Those who are saying that are just being populist or workerist. There are people who miss it, who think that you must just be unreasonable in your demands when you should be influenced by cost of living adjustment. So you can't, when the inflation, for instance, now is at 3%, 13%. What is informing you? Because cost of living adjustment is meant to address the disparities that are brought about by inflation and so on.
Yeah, maybe if I were to add on that, let's look at one of the founding principles of SADTU. And I want to also address this perception that says, no, because you are in the alliance, you are sleeping the same bed with the government and all those particular things and so on. You have to ask yourself a question. Those that call themselves non-aligned, so independent, how many times have they been able to fight and got what they're supposed to get? How many times? You must count. You'll never find them in the struggles, in the workplaces, in the streets. You can't find
In the
them.
trenches.
Yeah, in the trenches. So we had to fight for 0.1%, 0.5%. That was a part of your pay progression when we're not getting it. And up until 2013, when we had a bigger march to go and say, we want our money. And 2017, that we wanted it. Who else has done that? Only SADTU has done it. And clearly it is that the founding principle of SADTU is that we two legs, professionalism and unionism. So there's nothing wrong with us being political because our origins is that we are going to fight for community issues. We're going to fight against capitalism. And that's our ideology because it's anchored in National Democratic Revolution and anchored on the Freedom Charter. Hence, you find that we are calling for education as a liberation tool and not a commodity, and that we're anti-privatization and so forth. So it is fine for people to dream and talk about the fact that who's selling out, those who cannot go on strike when it's supposed to be, they're the ones that really are not representing their members. SADTU is strong. We always say we can be in a family, but if we don't agree, we don't agree.
That's good. And moving on that, how has the SADTU leadership and members managed to pursue and link the organization's objectives as well as its education programs to the broader politics of the liberation struggle and the development of a democratic state?
Look, one of our pillars in the SADTU Vision 2030 is about a developmental state. In other words, we are about an oriented state. So we linked that in terms of saying that we need a curriculum that is decolonized so that we use the education to empower and develop our people. And that's how we link it. So that if you look at one of our finding principle, and then you then are able to compare it with one of the pillars in the creating a learning nation, because that says that you've got to decolonize education in the curriculum, and you've got to really do away with disparities and so forth in order to ensure that you build an inclusive economy and a stable country through education. So we are there to say that we need to advance our foundational skills of learning and functional skills of learning for our people, because we need to change the entire education system, and that's what we're being doing as part of the struggles that SADTU has been waging and so forth. So it's that you cannot divorce education, because education is not neutral, and it will never be neutral. It is an instrument. It depends on in whose hands is. Because the apartheid used Bantu education to create these divisions amongst ourselves. Even if you look at how many number of political parties were contesting the elections, you see that is the legacy of apartheid. it is an internalized thing that is going on, is that you only have black parties, and then you have a consolidation of white under the DA, which is also an alliance, and then also the Freedom Front Plus. That's it. And they don't form any other. So it's just unfortunate that we still have got to have a lot of work to do in terms of our education to ensure that we are then able to produce self-standing, very critical people that would love their country and love their people and work for the people and so forth. So that is what we are doing. We were able to launch Curtis and Kondo to make sure that we are then able to take the process of education and professionalization forward. And that is an instrument. We see it as a weapon. It's a potent weapon that if it's used properly, it will then sharpen, the understanding of the NDR in education, but also sharpen our understanding of how education has got to be used. When Dr. Mandela said education is a powerful tool, to me, it is indeed a powerful tool. It's a beacon of hope that we can use really to be able to, do away with inequalities, do away with poverty, and so forth. So it is the struggle continues, it's a luta continuum. So that's how. So we used our 2030 vision to link up with the struggle. So if you see the 2030 vision, it's not negating our founding ethos as an organization, but it's a continuation. It is now how you amplify the implementation of the NDR.
I mean, transformation has been at the heart of our existence, education transformation. Hence, we fought so hard to have the Bella Act to try and level the playing field. And you can see the uproar from those that benefited from the past through SASA, which gave the SGBs powers to formulate a school policy, admission policy based on language and so on. So we went on to also to fight against gender disparities, hence equal pay for equal work, and the issue of maternity 4 months being paid. And as a principle in the organization, that we operating on a 50-50 basis when it comes to leadership.
Hey, that one is a problem. So it's so regressive, my president. This 50-50, it is the better one was that of not less than 3 women, which was also allowing that we can have a branch led by women only.
All of them.
That was very progressive. This one is limiting the women to. In certain instances, we witness elections where 5 women are in and 3, and then we have to redo the elections again because we did not qualify for 50. I mean, you have a union that has got more than 69%. 2/3.
Yeah.
It's women, and therefore you limit them. Of course, it's 50-50, but it's the contribution that we are making in our country to then say we need to make sure that the gender struggles is a union business, and we advance in that. But I loved the old one because we used to have structures where you have 8, 7 women in leadership and 1 man, and it was very progressive. This one. Of course, don't suspend me.
I agree with you.
It is a resolution.
That one was okay. How did the 50-50 come in? In 2010, towards the Congress, there was an attempt to bring in a zebra. The zebra approach is wherein if the president is male, then the general secretary should be female. After long debates, comrades agreed that to make sure that everybody is treated equally and so on, let's have in leadership, be it a branch, 50 male, 50 female, so that out of the 8 office bearers at the level of the branch, you would have 4 of them being female, 4 of them being males. You go to the region, the same applies. You go to the province, the same apply. You go to national, the same applies. So that's how it came about. But the previous one was much better.
I love that.
But 2010 onwards, We agreed on a 50-50. Although in some corners, there is still moaning and groaning to say, but males are taking key positions vis-a-vis what women would have got. But the argument also that we are putting forth is that our organization is based on direct and indirect representation.
Democratic central.
Yes. Now, decisions that we take at the level of National Executive Committee is based on decisions that come from the ground, wherein the Provincial Executive Committee, to finalize its decision, it's regions that constitute the Provincial Executive Committee. And for the regions to exist is because they are coordinating branches. So everybody else has a say in whatever decisions that we're taking. That's how it goes.
How critical is unity and cohesion in ensuring growth and fulfilling our objectives as a union?
Unity is very, very important, but it can't be for verbal consumption. Unity has got to be a deliberate action. It is important that when we implement democratic centralism in the form of direct and indirect representation, that our structures must be empowered. They need to be engaged. They must always be participating, because we then said we believe in democracy and participatory democracy for that matter. So in a participatory democracy, you have got to ensure that those structures are empowered and they're resourced in order for them to be able to engage the owners of our organization, being the members, from the side where they are found, whether it's a college, whether it's an office, whether it's a school, where they are found, so that they are engaging with the organizational issues and so forth. That's how, because if you don't account members in terms of those particular structures that are mentioned in the Constitution, to say you must have a site steward council, where you account as the BEC on the money that you use, on the decision that have been taken, you will not be able to have a united organization. If we were keeping the entire 100% here, and then we don't give the money back to the branches, SADTU structures differently, and that's how we maintain unity and cohesion, because our branches get almost the same as we get at national level. We retain 30% of the subscription, they get 30%. We take 30% to the provinces and we take 10% to the region, because it's a coordinating structure. And that's transparency and accountability, so that all of the leaders that are elected, they are able to account. So quarterly we come here, present a financial statement to cover, and we become open. And that's how we did. And if we indeed, you allow democracy to take place in an organization, you will then be united as an organization, because you allow everybody to take part in the decision. Otherwise, there's a problem if you don't do that.
The cornerstone of a unity in unions is membership service. If members are happy about the services that they are getting from our structures, who could have imagined that from 30,000 in 1990, we are now around 275,000. We hope to reach 300,000 in the not too distant future. Is because we are working very well together, and we are making sure that these people are being educated, both politically and otherwise, to be able to deal with issues. For instance, chairpersons of regions would undergo a 6 months political economy course from the University of Stellenbosch and so on. That has an impact on the branches and so on, and moving forward, and also in the bargaining issues, because you understand the economic situation and environment under which you are dealing with negotiations. Oftentimes people would try and lie and so on. But teachers being able to read and so on, we are able to we're not being arrogant. We're able to stand the pressure that comes our way, because it's not always easy, James.
It's not easy. And clearly is that, rapport, sometimes as leaders, we need to tell the truth. With things difficult as they are in the collective bargaining chambers, tell the members the truth. That you can only, guarantee that there's going to be unity and cohesion. If you go and become a populist and you lie to them, members will not trust you. The only contract we have with our members is that we have to be honest with them and that we service them. And then we allow them to criticize us. If you take away that principle of self-criticism and being criticized and so forth, and then you think you are a political party, you will keep on chasing people from parliament every day. You're not going to be able to ensure that there will be unity and cohesion in an organization. And so forth. So that's what we believe has to happen. Leadership must be accountable. Leadership must never lie to the member. If it's difficult, matter is difficult, you give it to them and say, this is difficult, and so forth. They will then come up with another solution for you. And there are many solutions that members will come up with. For example, we are preparing for a special Congress. We're going to allow our members to discuss, to then say, what do we do now that the South African Communist Party has taken a decision to contest the election, wall to wall? We would have taken a decision as the leaders if we're not accountable. It will divide our organization. Just because the decision, which is a miscarriage decision, miscarriage the democracy that was taken at the level of SADTU Congress. And then if we're not responsible leadership, we would have just gone in there and not go to what the Constitution tells us and what our National Congress has told us. Go have a special National Congress that will decide on the way forward around that. We've got to be responsible at the end of the day. And I'm happy. It is that we're not doing these things, from thumbs hacking and common sense on. We do these things from the Constitution. And that's very fundamental because the founding principles in the Constitution are very critical. And I want to repeat them. So because the leaders are here and the leaders have got to understand those principles are very critical. Now, non-racialism and non-sexism is very critical. We cannot elect leaders and tomorrow we take them because they are women, we take them out. Because that is counter-revolutionary. We need to be building on what we have been able to achieve. If it's a democratic centralism as a principle that we have, we need to make sure that we live the experience of democratic centralism. And therefore, it should not be convenient that all of a sudden, as leaders, we feel we like this one and then we don't follow that. This debate must start on the ground. That is democratic centralism. And the president has spoken one of the principles, which is a very, very critical principle, is that we, in our constitution, have said core to us is going to be transforming of the education system. We must be found there. What have we been able to do in terms of policy influence, in terms of legislation influence, SASA, Employment of Educators Act, National Employment Policy Act, and so forth? We are there. Our hands are always on the deck, making sure that we do those particular things. And, professionalism and unionism we've spoken almost about. I don't want to even explain it. It's one of the critical, founding principle of our organization. Where do you go when you want to find that professionalism is not against SADTU? Because I hear there are people today says, no, you are professionals, you are not unionists. We say professionalism and unionism will work together. Go to our constitution, you'll find that we say the code of conduct. And if you go to under the code of conduct, you're going to find that all those particular code of conduct are based on professionalism. First is that how you relate with the member to member, how do you relate to the students, how do you relate to authority, and so forth, and to the profession.
Our plea and wish is that we must never, ever be divided as an organization or lose the existence of SADTU, all because of politics. If it means that SADTU must remain SADTU and concentrate on improving working conditions of members, deal with collective bargaining and so on, so be it. But we wouldn't wish that tomorrow when we wake up, there is no organization called SADTU, all because of politics.
Will SADTU survive if it was not part of the either SACP or ANC?
Yes,
Yes.
we will survive.
The answer is yes.
A big yes.
Big
We
yes.
will survive because members who join will continue to defend them, unfair labor practices, and so on and so on. In fact, we will not be defocused a little bit. We'll be looking at their issues without any defocus whatsoever. There is a union without the ANC or the SACP or even any other party.
We're an independent organization. And being an independent organization means that we exist because of our members. We recruit everybody. We don't recruit on the basis of an ideology. That's what you will find in the Harare, declaration for our union. We will only wire them politically and ideologically when they are within the stable and so forth. So yes, the answer is a big, big yes. As long as there's a worker and as long as there's a child, there will always be a teacher. And as long as the child is there and the teacher is there, SADTU will remain. We will exist. We're not temporary. We are permanent. We're a lifeline.
There is an issue that came up, I think it was last year when there were new political organizations coming in, and the issue of some leaders who were removed from their leadership positions because they had joined other political organizations. And that was quite controversial, especially on social media platforms. Can you explain that?
Look, it's a policy of our organization because we are in the tripartite alliance, and we are an organization that is based on democratic centralism. We didn't take that policy as leadership. It's the members of our organization that took policy and says, because we are in the tripartite alliance, and SADTU is going to take decisions that support the alliance, whether it's the ANC or the SACP on a particular program and so forth. We do not want to burden our members who may be belonging to other parties not to be able to go and advocate for what they want to advocate. Because we are talking about a leader, not a member. Members can affiliate wherever they want to affiliate. You don't have a problem with that because we don't organize them on the basis of their ideology. We organize them because we want to unite the workers. But once we are in the leadership, and I want to explain this so that you understand it. Once you take up a leadership position, you subordinate your personal interest to that of the organization. You cease to exist. You cease to exist. So SADTU can take a decision and say, next week we are going to run a marathon. And then I then says, I have a democratic right. My interest is that I will be going to church or to somewhere else when we're running a marathon. Because my interest of going to church has been subordinated, and I have got to compromise and sacrifice that which I have to go and make sure that I represent the organization. Here is the burden, which is very problematic. So let's say you are not in the alliance and SADTU takes a decision and says, you are going to vote for the African National Congress and you are in the leadership. You are a chair or you are a secretary. You call a mass meeting to go and say, last week the National Congress has taken a decision that we are going to vote for the ANC and you are not a member of the alliance. Will you be able to do that as a leader? You won't be. It's a burden because then that organization of yours that is there is looking at you. Basically, is that they are going to dismiss you from that leadership that you have on the other side or member. They want to dismiss you because they're saying, no, but you are supposed to advocate for us. And then here you are canvassing for another political party. So we are saving them as members to be able to exercise their right to whether they want to follow this or not follow that and so forth. Because so remember, the leadership position is not your position. It is a position of the union. The union gives you temporarily, as long as you are disciplined, as long as you are compliant, and then you subordinate yourself to the organization. The moment you raise your head, the organization takes that position. We didn't dismiss you. We just took the position. But you are still remaining a SADTU member. So people must not be confused. We just took the position and we didn't dismiss anybody. Because dismissal would have come with what you call a disciplinary hearing and says, no, you have done something that is not wrong. No, we are saying the moment you decide that you are no longer part of the alliance and you are in a leadership, the best thing you do, you write and say, please take your position. It's a burden to me. I'm unburdening myself. So we didn't do anything wrong. We just took our position and then protected the position. And then we said, is there any other one who wants to raise a hand to take this position and be able to advocate for our positions and our policies?
Just go back a bit on the revolutionary task of the union.
As we have said that we are rooted in the National Democratic Revolution, also in the Freedom Charter as our ideology as well. And education being a liberation tool, and I want to emphasize that all the time. It is that one, you've got to be professional in whatever you do. That's a revolutionary task. You've got to work better than any other person who is not in the mass democratic movement. Your school must be different. Okay? Your school must perform. Your school must make sure that the dignity of a child and the dignity of the teacher is highly respected. That's when we are saying you are on task. You are on task. That task, it means that's a revolutionary responsibility, because again, it goes back to then say there must be some element of self-denial here, or self. Yes, you're denying yourself the beautiful things that you would have done and so forth in the best interest of the people. Okay. Another one is that, hardworking as a member of SADTU, preparing, you do your best and so forth is one of the responsibilities and of a revolutionary and so forth. So you need to be finding yourself. The other one is that you've got to make sure that you work in the communities and work with the communities and so forth, with COSAS and with SASCO and so forth. It's a revolutionary task to ensure that you unite the communities, you unite our structures under the MDM and so forth, and you serve the interests of our communities. So we always say SADTU does not belong to us as teachers only. SADTU belongs to the communities that we serve, because education is a societal matter. And because it's a societal matter, we have got to do that. That is our revolutionary task. Not having relationship with a learner is a revolutionary task. We are giving you that you cannot be tempted as a revolutionary. A revolutionary does not hurt people. A revolutionary delivers to the people. A revolutionary unites the people around those particular issues and work against gender-based violence and so forth. So that is what we believe are tasks that we are saying. You can say it's a SADTU at work, but if you are doing counter-revolutionary issues, dividing people and undermining the communities, that is counter-revolutionary. We believe in unity of purpose.
In addition, you can't practice corporal punishment when when you're said to be a revolutionary. You can't afford not to be exemplary. You must be a role model. The children you're teaching must wish to be like you one day when they grow up. The communities must see that there is a teacher of our children.
How should we define a SADTU member? If you were to define a SADTU member within the context of the revolutionary tasks and our vision.
A SADTU member must be committed to their work. They must do their work, which is their work. You can't hide behind the union. When you go to school unprepared, you can't go to school drunk, all in the name of you being in the leadership. You can't sell posts, all in the name of the union. You really have to be exemplary, be committed, be punctual, and do your work to the best of your ability. Because if you were to ask the parents who bring children into our hands why they are allowing us to take care of their children, some of them burying themselves alive, working in the mines, they would say it's for the sake of the future of our children in this country.
Highly disciplined, as I add, highly disciplined. A SADTU member must not be a member of another member, must know their constitution, know their responsibilities, and know their rights, and not become members of other members. That cannot be a SADTU member. A SADTU member is a teacher that teaches with love, a dose of love every day to what you do, because there's no revolutionary who does not have love.
On that positive note, we would like to end our show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's awaken the masses and disrupt the status quo. We are the champions of change, mobilizing the consciousness and uniting revolutionary professionals in strengthening foundational learning and functional skills to advance inclusive and sustainable economic growth in pursuance of a socialist society, leaving no one behind. Be part of history. Together, we'll shape a world where education isn't just a privilege, it is a revolution. We can be the catalyst for change.